it's been too long. Like, it's been way too long. It's been since 2015. 2015 since I'm so happy. I'm legitimately so happy right now because The Breaker Part 3 is here at long last. Like, I've been waiting, and I think many of us have been waiting since 2015. Like, I remember sitting down and doing videos on the series. Like, here, you can see it. Like, I was doing chapter by chapter reviews on the series, and then Part 2, New Wave, came to an end, and we have been waiting ever since for the continuation of The Breaker, and here it is, Chapter 1 of The Breaker. Oh my goodness, as you can see, I'm just happy. Like, legitimately, I'm so happy to be able to see this series, because honestly, with how many years have passed, I didn't know if we would ever get a part 3. Like, I legitimately, like, it was a distant memory in my mind of just sitting down and enjoying this series. I was just like, at this point in time, with how much time has passed, basically, since, like, part 2 came to an end, it's like, we're maybe not ever going to get a, part 3, and I guess my doubts were proven wrong, because here I am sitting down for Chapter 1 of Part 3. So, if you have never heard of The Breaker, which makes a lot of sense if you haven't, because at the time when I was talking about it, and some others, a part of the anime community, was talking about it, it's a very niche series. It's a very small community, I would believe. Like, I believe there is a big community out there, but I think in people that probably read it on the west side probably don't really know about the series. And this might be the first time you have ever heard about The Breaker. And if so, all I'm gonna say is just type in The Breaker Manhwa or Breaker manga on Google, look at some images, and you will just see how beautiful the artwork is for the series. Just the artwork alone is something that should gear you to just want to read it in of itself. Not even counting the story, but if you really like the artwork and what you see, I highly recommend you to sit down and actually read it, because it is so freaking good. But with that out of the way, if you're wanting to know a little bit more about The Breaker and kind of what it is, if, like I said, this is your first time hearing about it, it's a martial arts series. So if you like martial arts, you really love the fundamentals of martial arts, and you like to see maybe, some just straight up, like, great action sequences and all that, then this is going to be the series for you. I remember when I was reading the series a long time ago, back in 2015, 2014, and doing videos on it, I remember listening to actually Dragon Ball Z music. Like, I'm not even lying. Like, I legitimately would listen to Dragon Ball Z music on the side while I was reading the series, because that was my jam. Like, when I'm reading a series, it's action-packed or whatever, I listen to that type of music when I'm reading, and I did it with One Punch Man, and here I am doing it once again with The Breaker. Just all I'm gonna say is, if you are interested in that type, like action, martial arts, and beautiful artwork, sit down, dedicate some time to it. Now, with that out of the way, I wanna talk about, Chapter 1 of Part 3, so we're gonna start getting into some spoiler territory, so if you do not want to be spoiled and you want to read it for yourself, then I recommend you to leave the video now. Part 3 of The Breaker. Oh goodness. So, there's a few things to talk about. For one, the community I could see is questioning if we are switching main characters, because with Chapter 1 of Part 3, we are introduced to this new character that is in a very similar circumstance as how Shiwon, I hope I pronounce his name right, because I remember when, back in 2015, I still couldn't pronounce it right now. I absolutely butchered the names of the characters. But anyways, Shiwon as a character, our MC throughout Part 1 and Part 2, he was in a very similar circumstance as the new character that was introduced in Chapter 1 of Part 3. He's being bullied, he's very weak, and he's just like, he's not really helped out. He's by himself. He doesn't really have any friends, nobody's looking out for him, and he's at the end of his ropes, literally, to where he's done. He wants to be done with it entirely. And so, as he's making this, thought process about to potentially end it all, he meets Shiwon, our MC from part 1 and part 2 of The Breaker, and pretty much has a brief exchange and all that, and it's very similar to the exchange he had with the Nine Arched Dragon. If you remember, Shiwon's teacher, the man that has, like, the dragon symbolism all over him, throughout part 1 and part 2, and was, like, the final fight of part 2. The Nine Arched Dragon is kind of what stepped into Shiwon's life and helped him get stronger, was his teacher for a long time, and then, allowed him to get into, like, the martial arts world and all that, and really experience things from a different perspective. And so, the chapter, at least chapter, 1 of part 3, is in a very similar circumstance, but this time, it's not Shiwon that's getting help, it's actually Shiwon offering a hand to someone else and allowing them to kind of dig themselves out of the gutter and be able to fight for what they believe in. And so, when I think, or when I hear people saying that we might be switching MCs, I actually doubt that. I do doubt the fact that we're switching MCs. I think what the author was going for with this chapter, now, once again, I could be wrong with this. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It'll prove me wrong in the next chapter. But I believe what this chapter was meant to show is that how much Shiwon, as a character, our MC throughout part 1 and part 2, has grown, and that he's now at that point to where he potentially could be taking on disciples. He could be teaching people what he knows and what he learned from his teacher, the Nine Arched Dragon, and actually, help other people that are in need. Because a lot of time has potentially passed between the end of part 2 to where we're at now in part 3, and, he's probably had a lot of time to reflect on everything that's happened, the people he's lost, what has happened in his life, finding out more about his teacher, just all these little things. So I do believe that the chapter was more of a nostalgic feeling. It was meant to just, get nostalgia in the readers and be like, oh, I remember this, but now Shiwon is doing this. He's the one helping someone else out. And I really am curious on the direction it's going to go, and if Shiwon is legitimately going to be the teacher of this new character and actually train him. And it would be nice to see that. It would be nice to kind of get back into the fundamentals, because since it's been so long, it would be nice to get kind of a refresher on the series, a refresher on the power system, a refresher on just how the world works, because I want to be honest with you, I have not read The Breaker in so long. I have forgotten a lot. I really have forgotten a lot about the story, and I definitely need to dedicate some time out of my day to reread part 1 and part 2, because there is a lot of content I know I have forgotten, and I don't want to do that if I'm going to be doing weekly chapter reviews. I hope this series is weekly. I'm going to assume it's a weekly series, judging by how part 1 and part 2 was, but I really hope that when we look at just the way everything is, I am curious if we're going to get more of, like, the fundamentals. Like, we're just going to get a retelling, kind of refresher for those readers, since it's been about, like, 7 to 8 years now since, like, part 2 came to an end. Obviously, people might have been a little bit foggy on details coming back to this series. And I know many people that, when I said, when the series returned, like, hey, The Breaker part 3 is out, everybody's like, wait, what? Like, everybody's shocked, because nobody even thought it was coming. Like, everybody was shocked to hear that it was out, and honestly, I was with all of you that, saw that. Like, when I posted, I was just like, I couldn't believe the series is actually out. When I pulled up the chapter, I still could not believe that I was reading a new chapter of The Breaker. So I do think that, once again, refreshing everybody is probably the best way to go about it, if that is the arc we're going to get into, and kind of see what's happening with all our other characters. I would like to see what's happening to all our other female characters and stuff that, it was our main characters, or our main cast throughout part 1 and part 2. So hopefully we get a little bit more information on that and see their whereabouts, what's happening with them. But overall, Chapter 1 of Part 3 is very solid. It's mainly, like I said, just more of a nostalgic trip. That's exactly what it is, just to make you reminisce on how the series began, and this kind of lets me know I definitely need to, like I said, dedicate some time and reread the series, because of things I probably have forgotten, because I owe it to the series, because it is such a good read, honestly, and I have been sitting on the fence for a long time of just rereading it, and now is a good time as ever, because here it is. And if any of you this is the first time you're hearing about it and you're still watching this video, honestly, it's the perfect time to read it, catch up to it, and be able to sit down and read this series week by week if it is a weekly release. But one thing I do want to mention, though, is that the series is apparently full color now. That is a shock, actually, because if you no, if you remember, the Breaker Part 1 and Part 2, it was black and white. It was like a manga. But when you look at the Breaker Part 3, it's solid color. That's a huge distinction. Very different than, the previous, two parts we had, and I am curious about that, because if we're gonna get some godly color pages like we had throughout the series, I'm excited, because once again, if you're interested in being reminded of some of the godly color pages, type in the Breaker New Waves color page, or color covers, and you will see for yourself just how beautiful the artwork is when the author decided to actually cover and color a chapter. It is insane. So I do wonder if, we're going to have that same level of quality now that the full series is going to be in color. That's a very big upgrade, honestly, and I'm excited for that too. But I guess I'm going to leave it at that for now. I will cover the next chapter, obviously, because I've been patiently awaiting this series for so many years. Almost been a decade at this point, so yeah. But okay, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy my content, as always, leave me a like, subscribe, and, hit that bell icon down below. But with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.